The desperate plea. The sky above Zalora burned red. Smoke curled through the air as buildings crumbled under the relentless attack of the HFYStories. Their ships were dark and jagged, moving like predators circling wounded prey. Explosions echoed, shaking the ground beneath the Zalorians' feet. Fear gripped every heart. Elder Loren stood at the center of the grand hall, his hands trembling as he watched the destruction outside. His people were peaceful by nature, skilled in arts and knowledge, but untrained in war. They had no weapons strong enough to fight back. The HFYStories were ruthless, destroying everything in their path. "We cannot hold them back," whispered Mira, his trusted advisor, her voice cracking with despair. "Our defenses are failing. Our warriors, they are no match for the HFYStories." Loren's shoulders sagged. He looked at the faces around him, faces filled with terror and hopelessness. Children cried as their parents held them close, shielding them from the sounds of battle. If nothing changed, Zalora would fall. Their culture, their history, their people, all would be lost. "There is one chance," Loren said slowly, his voice heavy with hesitation. "We could send a distress signal." Mira's eyes widened. "You mean beyond our system, to the stars?" "Yes," Loren nodded. "If there is anyone out there who can hear us, anyone with the strength to stand against the HFYStories, maybe they will help." "But who?" Mira asked, fear evident in her gaze. "Who would come to our aid?" Loren did not answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the sky, where enemy ships loomed like dark shadows. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "Legends speak of powerful warriors from a distant world. Deathworlders, they are called. Beings of unimaginable strength and fearsome power." Mira gasped. "The Deathworlders, but they are monsters. Beasts who conquered their own deadly world to rise above all others. If they come, they might destroy us too." Loren looked at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. "If we do nothing, the HFYStories will destroy us. But if we call the Deathworlders, there is a chance for survival." A heavy silence fell over the hall. The choice was cruel: face certain death or risk inviting the most feared creatures in the galaxy to their home. But what other choice did they have? With a deep breath, Loren made his decision. "Send the signal," he ordered, his voice firm despite the fear in his heart. "Broadcast it across the galaxy. Let our plea reach the stars. Let the Deathworlders hear us." Mira hesitated for a moment, her fingers trembling. But then she nodded and rushed to the communication chamber. Technicians worked swiftly, their faces pale with fear. They connected the ancient systems, wires sparking as power surged through them. The signal was ready. Loren stood before the transmitter, his voice heavy with desperation. He spoke in the universal language, his words filled with sorrow and hope. "This is Elder Loren of Zalora. Our world is under attack. Our people are dying. We are unarmed, defenseless. If there is anyone who can hear us, if there is anyone with the power to stop this madness, please, help us." His voice wavered at the end, his plea echoing through the chamber. The message was transmitted, traveling beyond Zalora's atmosphere, through the void of space, carrying their cry for help across the galaxy. For a moment, there was only silence. Loren closed his eyes, his heart heavy. Had they done the right thing? Had they just invited another monster to their doorstep? But then, far away, a signal flickered. It was picked up by a dark, distant world. A world known only in whispers and legends. Earth, the Death World. The transmission reached them, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The Deathworlders had heard their cry. Loren did not know it yet, but his plea had awakened the most feared warriors in the universe. Help was coming, but it would not be the help they expected. And as the stars watched, the fate of Zalora hung in the balance. On Earth, the distress signal was received at the Global Defense Command, deep within a fortress carved into the mountains. The room buzzed with activity as holographic screens displayed the desperate plea from Zalora, repeating on a loop, "Please, help us." Commander Zara stood at the center, her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the hologram of Elder Lauren. His voice echoed in the room, filled with fear and desperation. She could see the destruction in the background. The fires, the falling buildings, the terror on the faces of his people. "They're being slaughtered," whispered Captain Rice, his jaw clenched. Unarmed, defenseless. Zora's gaze was cold, calculating. She had seen war before, felt its bitter sting. But this was a massacre. General Eric's voice cut through the tension, firm and unyielding. "They are not our problem. We don't owe them anything." His eyes were hard as steel. "We are feared across the galaxy for a reason. Involving ourselves will only bring more enemies." Zara's jaw tightened. "They called for help. Eric. They are innocents, children, families. They're being slaughtered." General Eric did not flinch. "And if we go, if we intervene, the Galactic Council already sees us as monsters. Deathworlders who conquered our savage world by becoming more savage than the beasts we defeated. If we unleash our power, they will fear us even more." Captain Rice looked at Zora, his eyes pleading. "Commander, we can't just stand by and do nothing. This isn't about politics. It's about saving lives." A heavy silence followed. Zora's mind raced, weighing the risks. It was true. Humanity was feared throughout the galaxy. Their strength, their resilience, their ability to survive on a deadly world had earned them a terrifying reputation. They were called Deathworlders, monsters, conquerors. But she remembered Earth's history. How once, long ago, humanity had reached out to the stars with hope and wonder, seeking friendship among the stars. How they were met with suspicion, fear, and even hatred. They were labeled as threats before they even spoke a word. "Deathworlders," she murmured, her eyes narrowing. "That's what they call us. Because we survived our harsh world. Because we are strong." She looked at her team, her voice fierce. "But strength is not just for destruction. It is for protection, for justice." She turned to face General Eric, her posture unwavering. "You're right, Eric. They fear us, but they don't understand us. They don't know that our power is not just to conquer, but to defend." General Eric's eyes softened, just for a moment, but his voice remained stern. "And if we go, if we reveal our strength to the galaxy once more, what then?" Zora's eyes burned with determination. "Then they will see that we are not the monsters they believe us to be. They will see that our strength protects as fiercely as it destroys." Captain Reyes grinned. "That's the Commander Zora I know." General Eric sighed, his shoulders relaxing. "You're risking more than just soldiers. You're risking our place in the galaxy." Zora nodded. "Yes, but if we do nothing, we risk our humanity." She turned to her team, her voice firm. "Prepare the fleet. We're answering their call." The room erupted into action. Technicians moved swiftly, their fingers flying across consoles. Alarms blared as battleships were activated, their engines roaring to life. The Deathworlder fleet was waking up. Zara stood tall, watching the holographic display of Zalora, still burning under the HFYStories attack. Her fists clenched. They would not face this alone. Not if she could help it. As she walked towards the command deck, her voice echoed with resolve. "Set a course for Zalora. And make it fast. We have lives to save." Suspense. As the fleet prepared for launch, the camera zooms in on Zora's face. Fierce, determined, unyielding. But behind her confidence lies a shadow of doubt. Will they be welcomed as saviors, or feared as monsters? The scene fades to black as the engines roar, and the Deathworlders head to Zalora, carrying both hope and fear with them. The skies above Zalora were aflame, burning with the fury of battle. Alien warships loomed like shadows, raining destruction upon the helpless cities below. The HFYStories fleet moved with cold precision, their weapons tearing through defenses, leaving ruins and chaos in their wake. Amid the devastation, a ripple tore through the fabric of space, a distortion, a crackle of energy. Then, like a storm unleashed, the Deathworlder fleet emerged from hyperspace. Zaloran survivors looked up, their eyes widening as the massive human warships appeared, sleek and deadly, their black hulls shimmering under the light of the burning skies. Commander Zara stood on the bridge, her gaze fierce. All ships, form up. Defensive positions. Shields to maximum. Her voice echoed through the comms, steady and strong. We're not letting them slaughter another innocent soul. Captain Reyes grinned, his fingers dancing across the controls. They're going to regret ever setting foot on this world. The HFY fleet hesitated, their formation breaking as they scanned the newcomers. They recognized the human ships, their size, their power, the aura of death that surrounded them. They knew the stories, the legends of the Deathworlders who survived the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. A HFY commander's voice crackled through the comms, sharp with contempt. Humans? What are you doing here? This is no concern of yours. Zora's eyes narrowed. Her voice was cold, filled with purpose. You attacked a defenseless world. You slaughtered innocents. That makes it our concern. The HFY commander sneered. Foolish Deathworlders. Do you think you can stand against the might of the HFY empire? Zora's lips curled into a dangerous smile. We're not here to stand against you. We're here to end you. With a wave of her hand, she gave the order. All ships, engage. The Deathworlder fleet roared to life. Cannons fired, spewing beams of pure energy that tore through space, colliding with HFY ships in blinding flashes of light. Missiles streaked across the void, leaving trails of smoke before detonating with explosive force. The HFY fought back, their weapons blazing, but the human warships were faster, stronger, more advanced. They moved like predators, swift, deadly, relentless. The battle was brutal. Explosions rocked the skies as ships collided and shattered, debris scattering like stars. Deathworlder fighters darted through the chaos, their agility unmatched as they weaved through enemy fire, launching devastating counterattacks. On the ground, Zalorans watched in awe and fear. They saw the power of the Deathworlders, their merciless efficiency, their ruthless precision. The humans fought without hesitation, without mercy. They fought like monsters, like legends. The HFY fleet began to falter, their formation crumbling under the ferocity of the human assault. One by one, their warships were destroyed, reduced to smoldering wrecks that rained down on Zalora's surface. But the Deathworlders did not relent. They pressed forward, driving the HFY back, chasing them from the skies. Commander Zora's voice was cold, commanding. Leave none standing. They showed no mercy to the innocent. We will show no mercy to them. Her words echoed through the fleet, igniting a fire in every soldier's heart. They fought with a fury unmatched, their weapons blazing as they tore through the enemy lines. The HFY did not flee. Defeated in space, they descended upon Zalora's surface, their soldiers storming the cities, hunting the survivors who dared to resist. Blasters fired, echoing through the shattered streets as buildings crumbled under the relentless assault. Within the ruins, Zaloran civilians hid, trembling as the monstrous HFY warriors marched through the wreckage. Their eyes were cold, faces twisted with cruel purpose. They showed no mercy, no hesitation. Commander Zara watched from her warship, her jaw clenched as she witnessed the slaughter below. Her hands tightened into fists. Prepare the drop pods. We're going in. Captain Reyes looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. Ground assault. That's risky. The HFY are dug in deep. Zara's gaze hardened. They're hunting civilians. We don't leave innocents to die. She turned to her troops, her voice unwavering. Suit up. We're bringing the fight to them. The Deathworlder soldiers suited up in heavy armor, their faces set with determination. They were warriors from Earth, a planet of danger and death, a world that forged them into the strongest beings in the galaxy. The drop pods launched, slicing through the atmosphere like fiery comets. They slammed into the ground, bursting open as the Deathworlders charged out, weapons blazing. The HFYStories were waiting. They opened fire, filling the air with energy blasts and smoke. But the humans did not falter. They moved like shadows, swift and deadly, their armor absorbing the impacts as they closed the distance. Sergeant Cole led the charge, his rifle spitting fire as he tore through the enemy lines. His movements were brutal, precise, each shot finding its mark, each strike devastating. A HFYStories warrior lunged at him, blades gleaming. Cole sidestepped, his fist crashing into its skull with a sickening crunch. "Pathetic," he growled, shoving the body aside. "These monsters call themselves warriors." The Deathworlders advanced, pushing the HFYStories back, their sheer ferocity overwhelming the invaders. They fought with a ruthless efficiency, their tactics flawless, their strength unmatched. But the HFYStories were relentless. They threw wave after wave at the humans, determined to break their lines. Explosions rocked the battlefield as the two forces clashed, the ground shaking under the weight of their fury. Amid the chaos, Zara's voice cut through the comms. "Team Alpha, secure the civilians. Team Bravo, push through to the command center. We end this now." Captain Rice led Team Bravo, his squad cutting through the enemy defenses as they charged toward the HFYStories command post. Blasters fired, grenades exploded, the air thick with smoke and death. They reached the command center, a fortified building guarded by elite HFYStories soldiers. Rice grinned, his eyes gleaming with battle lust. Time to knock on their door. He planted explosives at the entrance, the blast tearing the doors apart. The Deathworlders stormed in, guns blazing, their roars echoing through the halls. Inside, the HFYStories commander stood waiting, his eyes cold and calculating. "Foolish humans, you should have stayed in the stars." Rice raised his rifle, his voice low and deadly. "You invaded our galaxy. You slaughtered the innocent. Now you pay the price." The commander snarled, charging at Rice with blades drawn. They clashed, metal against metal, sparks flying as they fought with savage ferocity. The duel was brutal, fast, each strike meant to kill. Rice moved like a predator, dodging the HFYStories' attacks, his counterstrikes precise and lethal. With a roar, he drove his blade into the commander's chest, twisting as the alien gasped, its eyes wide with shock. "This is for Zalora," Rice whispered, pulling the blade free. The commander fell, its body crumpling to the ground. Team Bravo secured the command center, disabling the enemy's communication systems. The HFYStories forces faltered, their ranks breaking as they realized their leader was dead. The Deathworlders pressed their advantage, driving the invaders back, liberating the city block by block. The sky above Zalora darkened as the HFYStories reinforcements emerged from hyperspace, an armada of warships blotting out the stars. Their engines roared, massive cannons charging with lethal energy. The ground trembled as the fleet descended, a shadow of doom falling over the city. Commander Zara watched the display on her command console, her face grim. They sent everything they had. They're not just here to retake Zalora. They're here to annihilate us. Captain Rice's voice crackled through the comms, steady but tense. "We've dug in, but we're outnumbered. We can't hold them off forever." Zora's gaze hardened. "We don't need to. We just need to buy enough time for the civilians to escape." She turned to her officers. "Activate the planetary shields. Hold the line at all costs." The shield generators powered up, a shimmering dome enveloping the city. It hummed with energy, repelling the first barrage of enemy fire. Explosions rippled across the barrier, lighting up the sky with flashes of destruction. On the ground, the Deathworlders braced for the assault. Barricades were reinforced, heavy weapons aimed at the skies. They stood shoulder to shoulder, faces set with determination. They were warriors of Earth, protectors of the innocent. And they would not falter. The HFY's fleet unleashed a relentless bombardment, beams of energy crashing against the shield, shaking the ground with every impact. The dome flickered, its power fading under the onslaught. Zara's heart raced as she watched the energy levels drop. Shields at 40%, 30%, 20%. Then, with a thunderous crack, the barrier shattered. Pieces of the dome rained down, the city exposed to the full fury of the HFYs. The enemy descended like vultures, drop pods slamming into the ground as waves of alien soldiers poured out, weapons blazing. They charged with ruthless precision, their numbers overwhelming. Sergeant Cole stood at the front lines, his rifle roaring as he cut through the first wave. "Hold the line. No retreat." His voice echoed through the comms, rallying his squad. The Deathworlders fought fiercely, their firepower devastating, their resolve unbreakable. But the HFYs kept coming, climbing over the bodies of their fallen, determined to crush the defenders. Captain Reyes coordinated the defense, his team moving like shadows through the rubble, striking hard and fast before disappearing. They harassed the enemy lines, disrupting formations, buying precious time. But the HFY's commander was cunning. It saw through their tactics, directing its forces to encircle the humans, trapping them in the ruins. Reyes cursed as he realized they were surrounded. "They're cutting off our escape. We're getting boxed in." Zara's mind raced, calculating the odds. The HFYs were pressing from all sides, their fleet bombarding the outer defenses. Her forces were stretched thin, their ammo running low. Desperation clawed at her, but she refused to surrender. "Send out the distress signal. We need reinforcements." An officer shook his head. "We've tried. The HFYs are jamming all frequencies. We're cut off." Suspense. Zara's stomach dropped. They were alone, isolated in enemy territory, surrounded by a merciless foe, and no help was coming. Her thoughts spun, searching for options. Then she remembered the ancient communication array buried beneath the city, an old relic from Zalora's past, powerful enough to break through the jamming. Her eyes lit with hope. "We need to reach the underground array. It's our only chance." But the path was blocked by enemy forces, a deadly gauntlet between them and salvation. Zara's jaw tightened. "We fight our way through. We don't stop until that signal gets out." She turned to her soldiers, her voice fierce. "This isn't just about survival. This is about saving Zalora, about stopping the HFYs once and for all. If we fall, they'll wipe out everything, every man, woman, and child. We hold the line. We fight to the last." The Deathworlders roared in unison, their battle cry echoing through the shattered city. They would not yield. Not now. Not ever. Cliffhanger. As they prepared for the final push, a massive shadow loomed over them. The ground shook as a colossal HFY's war machine emerged, its cannons glowing with lethal energy. Zara's eyes widened, her heart skipping a beat. What is that? The alien weapon aimed at them, its power building to a catastrophic level. There was no time to retreat, no place to hide. The screen fades to black as the cannon fires, a blinding light consuming everything. Blinding light engulfed the battlefield as the HFY's war machine fired, its destructive beam tearing through buildings, leaving a smoking crater in its wake. Dust and debris filled the air, the ground trembling from the impact. Commander Zara's ears rang as she staggered to her feet, her vision blurred. The blast had missed her by inches, the heat searing the ground around her. She looked around, relief washing over her as she saw her squad getting up, bruised but alive. Sergeant Cole's voice crackled over the comms. "That thing almost vaporized us. What are we dealing with?" Zara's eyes locked on the alien war machine, its massive form lumbering forward, cannons humming with power. It was a titan of destruction, armored with impenetrable plating, shields rippling with energy. Captain Race's voice was grim. "I've never seen anything like it. Our weapons won't even scratch it." Zara's mind raced, piecing together a plan. It's powered by that energy core in its chest. If we can overload it, we might take it down. Cole scoffed. And how do we get close enough without getting turned to ash? Zara's jaw tightened. We use speed and chaos. We'll hit it from all sides, keep it distracted while a strike team goes for the core. She looked at Reyes, determination in her eyes. You lead the main assault. Draw its fire. I'll take the team to plant the charges. Reyes hesitated, worry flickering across his face. That's suicide, Commander. You'll be in its kill zone. She forced a smile. If we don't try, we're all dead anyway. Besides, I've never been good at sitting still. Suspense. The Deathworlders moved swiftly, splitting into two groups. Reyes's team took up positions, heavy weapons aimed at the war machine. They unleashed a barrage of fire, energy blasts lighting up the sky, explosions rocking the battlefield. The behemoth roared, its cannons turning on them, beams of death slicing through the air. Buildings crumbled, dust clouds rising as the ground shook. But Reyes's team kept moving, staying one step ahead, evading the deadly blasts. Meanwhile, Zara's strike team weaved through the rubble, using the chaos as cover. They moved like shadows, silent and swift, closing the distance to the war machine. They reached its massive legs, the metal towering above them like ancient pillars. The hum of energy vibrated through the air, the ground trembling with each step of the giant. Zara motioned to her team. Place the charges on the joints. We'll bring it to its knees. Her soldiers moved quickly, magnetizing explosive devices to the legs, the timers blinking with a red glow. Suddenly, the war machine's sensors detected them. It turned, its cannons charging, the energy building with a high-pitched whine. Zara's heart skipped a beat. Movie. They dived for cover as the ground exploded, shrapnel raining down. One soldier was thrown back, his body limp as he hit the rubble. Zara bit back a curse, her fists clenching. They had to keep going. There was no turning back now. They regrouped under the shadow of the war machine, its cannons rotating, scanning for targets. Zara's eyes locked on the core, its blue light pulsing with power. That's our target. We get to that, and this monster goes down. Tension builds. The strike team advanced, dodging blasts as the war machine fired wildly, its sensors struggling to track them amidst the chaos. They climbed its legs, scaling the metal surface, magnets on their boots securing their grip. The core loomed above them, its energy swirling, the power humming through the air. Zara set the final charge, securing it right under the core. She activated the timer, the screen counting down from 60. Charges set. Let's get out of here. But the war machine's systems detected the explosives. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across its body. The cannons turned inward, targeting its own structure, firing at the intruders. Explosions erupted around them, metal shattering as the war machine tried to destroy the charges. Zara's team ran, the blasts chasing them, the heat on their heels. Zara shouted over the noise, Reyes, we planted the charges. Get your team clear. This thing's going down. Reyes's voice was sharp. Understood. We're falling back. But as Zara looked down, her blood ran cold. The HFY forces were swarming below, cutting off their escape. Dozens of alien soldiers surrounded the war machine, their weapons trained on her team. They were trapped. Explosions erupted around Zara's team as the HFY forces closed in, weapons blazing. The air was filled with smoke, dust, and the sharp crackle of energy blasts. The Deathworlders fought back fiercely, their rifles lighting up the shadows, but they were outnumbered and cornered. Zara's eyes flicked to the timer on the charges. 15 seconds. They were running out of time. The HFY's commander advanced, its voice echoing coldly. Your resistance is pointless. Humanity's fate is sealed. Zara's jaw tightened, defiance burning in her eyes. You're right about one thing. This ends now. She opened a channel to Reyes. Get your team to safety. This is going to be big. Reyes' voice was urgent. Zara, don't do this. We can still get you out. She shook her head, firing at the advancing Exorix. There's no time. The mission comes first. Make sure Earth knows what happened here. Her team exchanged determined glances, standing firm at her side. They knew the cost, and they were ready to pay it. The charges blinked faster, the red lights reflecting off the war machine's core. The hum of energy grew louder, vibrating through the metal. Zara's team fought with everything they had, refusing to back down, their courage unwavering even as the Exorix surrounded them. They moved in perfect sync, covering each other, protecting their commander. A blast hit the ground near Zara, throwing her back. She hit the rubble hard, pain shooting through her body. Her vision blurred, but she forced herself to stand. There was no room for weakness. The Exorix commander aimed its weapon at her, eyes glowing with hatred. You are doomed, human. Your kind will be forgotten. Zara smirked, blood trickling from her lip. Funny. I was about to say the same thing about you. Her hand tightened around the detonator, her finger hovering over the trigger. She could see the core above, pulsing wildly, the energy destabilizing. The Exorix realized too late what was happening. They tried to retreat, panic flashing across their faces as they saw the charges blinking. 2 seconds. Zara took a deep breath, her gaze steady, fearless. For Earth. For humanity. 1 second. She pressed the trigger. A blinding flash filled the sky as the charges detonated. The war machine's core overloaded, releasing a wave of energy that tore through its body, ripping metal apart. The air crackled with electricity, the blast echoing for miles. The shockwave hit the ground like a tidal wave, vaporizing the Exorix forces, reducing them to ashes. The earth shook, the ground splitting as the energy surged outward. The war machine collapsed, its massive form crumbling, flames erupting from its shattered core. Its dying roar echoed as it fell, crashing into the ruins below, sending a cloud of dust into the sky. Reyes watched from a distance, his heart sinking as the explosion faded. The battlefield was silent, the dust settling over the ruins. There was no sign of Zara's team. His hands clenched into fists, grief tightening his chest. Zara. He approached the smoking remains, his soldiers following in silence. They searched the rubble, calling out names, hoping for a miracle. But there were no survivors. Then, beneath a twisted metal beam, Reyes saw something. He pulled it free, his eyes widening. It was Zara's helmet, scorched but intact. He held it in his hands, his shoulders shaking. A voice broke through his comms, crackling with static. It was the fleet commander. Captain Reyes, the enemy forces have retreated. Earth is safe, because of them. Reyes looked at the ruins, his eyes filled with sorrow and pride. They did it. They saved us all. Back on Earth, news of the victory spread. Statues were built to honor the fallen heroes, their names etched in stone. They became legends, their bravery inspiring generations. But for Reyes, their loss was personal. He stood before Zara's memorial, her helmet placed at its base. He whispered, "You kept your promise. You saved humanity. Rest easy, Commander." He saluted, his eyes unwavering. The wind carried his words, a solemn vow. "We'll carry on. We'll protect Earth, just like you did." The screen fades to black as the ruins lie silent, the echoes of battle fading. But from the dust, a glimmer of light shines. Hope, born from sacrifice.